All right, welcome back. So last week we talked about how to calculate out your calorie need. Today we're going to talk about tracking your calories. Now, for some of you, you've already decided to turn this video off because tracking your calories is not something you want to do. And I want to ask you, when you go to work, your progress is tracked, your boss looks at your progress, or if you are the owner of the business, you look at progress through reports and through reporting. When it comes to your body, you need to do the exact same thing. Your body doesn't give you a readout or a printout, it gives you a weight fluctuation up or down. What it also tells you is how you feel day to day based on the calories that you're taking in. For instance, when you wake up and you're super hungry and you think you've been restricting your calories for a couple of days, maybe you have been, and then you start looking at food, you see food, and you devour food, that's a really good sign that your caloric deficit was way too high. Now, we can avoid that by tracking our food. And it's not something that people want to hear. People don't want to hear that they have to be accountable to themselves and a journal. And that's what it can be. It can be pen and paper. It can be an app. It could be pictures. You could be meeting with somebody who's going over your food and your calories. But at the end of the day, you want to look at your foods and create some sort of log that allows anybody, yourself included, to look at that and go, am I seeing success with my plan or am I not? So we did talk about it last time that when we look at food labels, they can be up to 25% off, which that's perfectly fine. That's how they are. We can't change that. But if you're always eating in what you think is a calorie deficit and you're not seeing a change to your composition, yes, there are hormonal things that could be playing into that. But for this video specifically, if you always feel like you're in a caloric deficit and you are not seeing your weight change, well, we may need to evaluate whether or not you're really in a caloric deficit. And there are other variables that go into that. So we're not going to go into that right now. We're just talking about tracking your food, all things being equal. So if you're tracking your food, sincerely tracking your food, and being diligent about everything you put in your mouth and keeping a log of, we can look at that and go, okay, well, maybe these foods are not agreeing with your system. Or maybe your portions are not exactly what you think they are. Because a lot of times when people look at their food, they'll say they have a bowl of cereal. Well, depending on the size of your bowl, that could be anywhere from 1 to 8 cups worth of food. Well, a serving size of cereal is going to be about 2/3 of a cup to a half a cup. So if you think you're having a bowl, and in that bowl you think it's 2 cups, and in reality it's 4 cups, well, yes, you had a bowl, but you had a big discrepancy in your calories. So when we track calories, it's for feedback for ourselves. What ends up happening when you restrict calories too much, your brain becomes foggy, your appetite gets insatiable. You become the shark from Finding Nemo. So remember when the shark smells the blood, his eyes get super wide, just devours everything in sight? That's what happens to the human body when our calorie deficit gets too big. We want to create a deficit. We don't want to create a deficit that's so big that you cannot sustain that calorie deficit because you're always breaking when you see food. So what we need to do is see how many calories you're really taking in. So in the last video, which has been linked somewhere up here, you saw how to calculate your calorie need. In this video, we're talking about how to track your calories. In the next video, we're going to talk about calories and how they affect your performance, because all those things will eventually lead back to your appetite and how your body is breaking down and consuming calories. If you are on the seafood diet, then your calorie restriction is too high. You're restricting your calories too much. So the lower evolved portion of your body, the part that really wants to survive, is going, I see food, I eat food. You lose because your body's job is survival. So what we want to do is really look at tracking our food. You can do it through pen and paper, you can do it through apps, you can do it a bunch of different ways. You do it whatever way works best for you, but you have to be honest with yourself, and you can't just say, I don't want to track my food because I don't want to track my food. Well, if you have a goal for weight loss, or you have a goal for performance, or you have a goal for anything, you have to track it. And it's not a lifelong thing. You don't always have to track your food. You just have to learn what portion sizes are and learn how to control your portions. Once you learn that, it's a lot easier to stop tracking your food and still see results. But you have to start somewhere. So we start with creating the calorie deficit, then we start with the tracking, then we go into how our body feels and what happens when we're in a calorie deficit, and exercising.